Okay, let's talk about hair loss. It's something that causes a ton of anxiety for so many of us. And you've seen it, right? The market is just absolutely flooded with so-called miracle cures. But we're here to ask a really simple question. What does the science actually say about the natural treatments out there? Let's dive in and find out. You know that feeling? It's just this sinking feeling in your stomach, right? You see a little more hair in the shower drain, maybe on your pillow, definitely on your brush, and suddenly all these questions start swirling. It's a super common concern. So if this is you, trust me, you are not alone.
I mean, go online and it is just buzzing with solutions. You've got everything from these ancient traditional remedies to flashy new supplements. Our whole goal here is to just cut right through all of that noise. We're going to focus only on the clinical evidence.
So in the next few minutes, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're separating fact from fiction. We're going to look at the real data, the actual studies, and what the results tell us so you can get a really clear picture of what works, what doesn't, and most importantly, why.
All right, before we can even talk about solutions, we have to get a handle on the problem itself. So let's start with the science. What is actually happening on our scalps when hair starts to thin? Well, for most people, the main culprit has a name, androgenetic alopecia, or just AGA. And the most important word to remember here isn't falling out, it's shrink. Your hair follicles aren't just giving up, they're actually miniaturizing. They start producing thinner, weaker hairs over time. It's all driven by a combination of your genes and a sensitivity to a hormone called DHT.
So think about your hair having a life cycle. It has three basic phases. There's a long growth phase, a quick transition phase, and then a resting and shedding phase. It's a natural rhythm, but what AGA does is it basically throws a wrench into this whole system. It messes with the timing, right? It shortens that precious growth phase and makes the resting phase last longer. And the result? Well, you get more shedding and less healthy new growth to take its place.
And this idea really gets to the heart of the modern approach to hair health. It's not just about, say, blocking one hormone. As Dr. R.J. Rajput points out, the follicles themselves become weak and sensitive because of a bunch of different factors. So a really successful strategy can't just be about playing defense. It has to be about playing offense, actively promoting and strengthening that entire growth cycle.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we strengthen that cycle? Let's start by looking at what we can do from the inside out. It's time to check out the real clinical evidence for supplements.
And look, we're not just talking about some small one-off studies here. We're talking about a massive recent review that pulled together the data from 19 different clinical trials. We're looking at data from over 1,600 patients. That gives us a really powerful look at what's actually effective.
So the big question, what did all this data show? Well, when the researchers crunched all those numbers, a few clear winners really stood out. Compared to just a placebo, things like a standardized plant extract blend called Nutrafol, pumpkin seed oil, apple extract, and even these things called tocotrienols, which are basically a super potent form of vitamin E, they all showed a significant improvement in hair density. This isn't just your friend's cousin saying something worked, this is high-level clinical evidence. Now, beyond those specific supplements, we can't forget about the basics, the fundamental building blocks. Having a deficiency in certain nutrients can absolutely cause hair to thin. I love this analogy. Think of iron as the oxygen delivery truck for your follicles. Zinc is like the repair crew that fixes things up. And biotin? Well, biotin is the foreman, making sure the whole structure, the keratin protein in your hair, is strong and solid. All right, so that's the game plan for working from the inside out. But what about treatments you can apply directly to the scalp? It's time to flip the script and look at the outside-in approach.
Okay, now this is where things get really fascinating. Researchers decided to set up a direct head-to-head battle, the famous drug minoxidil on one side and simple rosemary oil on the other. And the result? Honestly, it was pretty stunning. After 6 months, both groups showed significant and comparable improvements in their hair counts. Think about that. A natural essential oil went toe-to-toe with a major pharmaceutical and held its own.
And maybe the best part of all this is how easy and accessible it is. I mean, the study basically gives us a recipe. You just mix about 10 drops of the oil into an ounce of lotion and apply it to your scalp. We're literally talking about pennies a week for something that has clinical evidence backing it up against a leading drug. It's pretty incredible. So, seeing this kind of success with rosemary, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What about all those other ancient remedies people swear by? Like, what about ginger? It's been used for centuries with the claim that it promotes hair growth.
Well, here's a fantastic and critical cautionary tale. It's a perfect lesson in why we have to follow the science and not just the stories. Because when ginger was finally put to a formal test, it did the exact opposite of what everyone thought. It actually suppressed human hair growth. A huge reminder that we have to test everything because our assumptions aren't always right.
Okay, so we've got some promising evidence for these inside-out and outside-in natural approaches. So now for the big showdown. How do they really stack up against the heavy hitters, the conventional prescription drugs like finasteride?
Let's go right back to that huge meta-analysis we talked about. The conclusion the scientists came to was actually really balanced and sensible. They said that supplements can be beneficial adjuncts, which is just a fancy word for something you add on top of your existing treatment. Or, in some cases, they could be alternatives, and that really frames their role perfectly. This really paints a clear picture of the power dynamic. When you compare supplements to a placebo, a sugar pill, you see a significant improvement. They clearly work. But when you compare them to a super potent drug like finasteride, they are generally speaking less potent. So here's the crucial takeaway. Natural options do work, but they are not a one-to-one replacement for the most powerful pharmaceuticals out there. So you might be asking, well, if the drugs are more powerful, why would anyone even consider an alternative? And the answer really comes down to this. For some people, the standard drugs can come with persistent and sometimes serious side effects, things that can really affect your quality of life, like loss of libido or even depression. And that is the main reason why the search for effective and much better tolerated natural options is so important.
Whew! Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. So let's take a second and just boil it all down to the most important key takeaways.
All right, here's what you really need to know. Number 1, hair health is complex. It's a mix of genetics, hormones, and nutrition. Number 2, for that inside-out approach, things like pumpkin seed oil and some of those multi-ingredient supplements have some really strong science behind them. Number 3, for the outside-in approach, topical rosemary oil is a real standout, proving to be just as effective as 2% minoxidil in a study. And finally, the big picture takeaway. These natural options aren't magic bullets, but they are powerful, evidence-based tools for supporting a healthy hair growth environment.
And all this leaves us with one final thought-provoking question. For so long, the main strategy has been about blocking a hormone, playing defense. But as the science evolves and we learn more about the power of nourishing and supporting the follicle directly, you just have to wonder, right? Could the future of hair care be less about defense and a whole lot more about building a stronger offense right from the inside out?